A man who needs really no introduction to any rock fan that has listened to music in the last 20 years. Duff McKagan on the phone.
Hey, Carl. Here I am. I hope I stay on here. I'm driving from Rochester to Saratoga Springs at the moment. I'm kind of out in the farm country.
Okay, well, we'll try to get all the good questions in before your phone blows up.
Okay.
So the Walking Papers, man, this band is phenomenal, and I don't normally blow smoke up anybody's ass on that front. I mean, you know, I hear a lot of music in my role as a radio guy, and you know, it's August of 2013, and this is one of the very few bands that I heard and was like, man, what is this? And then I find out you're in the band, Barrett Martin's in the band, and I'm just blown away.
Yeah, it's a really musical. I mean, it's a gift that sort of came my way last year when we started playing, and Barrett's a guy. I mean, if anybody's listening doesn't really know who Barrett is, you should go find out now. Screaming Trees and Mad Season, and did a lot of work like on that Queens of the Stone Age Rated R record, and very musical drummer. And then Jeff Angel, I've always wanted to play with Barrett, and Jeff Angel, the singer, guitar player of this band, is a guy that I've wanted to work with for the past 14, 13 years or whatever it's been. And then the addition of Ben Anderson. It's just it's a musical journey, and we're out touring right now and getting to play every night with these guys is great, and the record's really satisfying, you know?
This is kind of like a Seattle supergroup. I mean, you got Mike McCready from Pearl Jam also on the record, and he plays on the first single, The Whole World's Watching. How did you get into this band? I mean, it seems kind of like amazing that they threw you into the mix.
Well, I mean, I'm a Seattleite, and Seattle's a smallish musical community, and it is a community where something like this can happen at any given time, where, you know, McCready and I have known each other since we were 14 or something, and just a bunch of guys that like playing music together, and this band really just came together through us knowing each other and fans of each other's bands and songwriting skills and et cetera.
Barrett Martin has kind of a distinct style. He did a lot of stuff with a band called Tuatara a while back too, and you could tell that just listening to this record, it has a lot of his feel to it, but it's also got this, like, I don't know, like this Led Zeppelin-y kind of thing going on. And in the liner notes, it says that Barrett Martin and Jeff Angel are the main writers of the music. Now, is it kind of their project and you're thrown into it, or are all you guys writing on this record? That's
how it began with those two guys, yeah. And as I said, I was, you know, given the opportunity. Those guys, they called me, and perfect time for me. I hadn't played bass live for a while, and I was really missing it. I was at home practicing bass, but I was out playing guitar with Loaded, and I was really missing playing in a rhythm section. And this one, playing with Barrett, is just, if you're a bass player, it's just the place you want to be. And so, I was just they called me. You want to come play? Want to come, jam? You want to play on this? We got the songs recorded, and that's where it started.
Now, you've had some amazing experiences with some crazy frontmen. Are you going to keep this frontman in line?
He's different. We kind of joke about it, but I'm trying to give him like some lessons on man. You can't be so cool. you got to throw a tantrum here and there. He doesn't even know what a tantrum is. But he's like me. We both have daughters, so we're not really allowed to throw tantrums. You know, we're our job in life is to like kind of quell tantrums.
Well, you've had your fair share of tantrum time.
Yeah. I'm due for something like this. So all the guys are real cool. I mean, every band I've been in. Everybody's been cool. You know, there's been some famous blow-ups and stuff, but it's great to be where I'm at right now.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was your financial planning company that you have, Meridian Rock.
Yeah, Meridian Rock.
I'm pretty blown away by this because, I read your book, It's So Easy and Other Lies. I read your Seattle Weekly column. I've read your stuff in Playboy and in ESPN. And, a lot of the questions I was going to ask you have been wiped out by everything you've already written. And, it's like, just go read his stuff. It's already out there.
Yeah, indeed.
But the Meridian Rock stuff is pretty fascinating to me because it's very necessary. You know, a lot of musicians out there, and you even mentioned this, they don't think about the financial side of being in a band. What is some of the most typical things that bands have to face being in a band in terms of finances?
Well, I mean, now it's a whole different story than it used to be. So I think we started with some, you know, personalities who have accrued some dough, have made some money, and really don't know what to do with it, and don't have anybody that they really trust or understand to talk to. And I think when I started going to Seattle Youth to the business school, I started getting some calls from friends of mine, you know, who are in bands, and, "Hey, Duff, can you help me out?" You know, basically, I was the one guy they could trust. I'm one of us, not one of them, not one of the financial guys. And really, when I started writing for Playboy, those weekly financial columns, when everything was falling apart in, you know, our economy, I would write, you know, 700 to 1,000 words on what was going on that week, and in plain English, not financial terminology, and that really started to attract some people who were in the financial industry who wanted to kind of help me figure out a way to help my peers.
What was one of the first things that kind of like hit you? Because I went in your book, you mentioned, you know, you were kind of recovering from alcohol, drugs. You almost died, and you were starting to go through the financials of GNR, and you really didn't understand it. And then, what was it that made you go, "Oh man, I get it now"?
Oh, I went to school. I went to school to figure it out. I went to business school. You know, I can't say I went back to school because I never went to school in the first place. I left high school early, so I got into a business school that was kind of renowned, you know, up in Seattle, and really just started from square one, and went through all the accounting and all the macro and microeconomics courses and business calculus and all that stuff, and really. Within the first year of school, I really started to figure out my own financial, you know, world, and that's what I went to school for initially. But it's kind of turned into something else now. Now,
did you find yourself in a bad state, or was it like, oh, now I get it, and I just need to do some moving around of things, or was it like, man, I wish I would have done it completely different, moving, you know, looking back?
Yeah, but you could never go back. So I was there. I think that's one of the things, you know, me kind of coming through all of that, the drinking and drugs thing too. I really had a mind, a knowledge of you can't go back. I couldn't go back and undrink all that stuff I drank. I couldn't go back and undo all the drugs I did. So I was just moving forward with life in general. So even the financial stuff, of course, we could have been smarter with our money as a band back in the day, and been smarter with the way we did things, but we weren't. And we still did fine, and I'm sure we got taken advantage of plenty of times by plenty of promoters and the record company, for sure, and managers and whatnot, definitely. But there was nothing I could do about stuff that happened 5 or 6 years before. You just can't.
Yeah, but you managed to be able to turn it around with Velvet Revolver. I mean, you renegotiated the band's contract, and I would venture to say that you're pretty damn successful these days.
Yeah. I never. I did okay, and I you know, I wanted to retain what I was earning because you know, when you're in a band, you are the one that's earning money. You're the one who's earning and paying salaries and making money for everybody else. So just like a pro athlete, you know how they've gotten power with the unions and whatnot. They take, you know, a share of what they're creating revenue-wise. LeBron James is the attraction.
Yeah.
He should, you know, if there's a bunch of money being made, you can argue, well, those guys make too much money, but but they're generating a lot of money. So
right.
Just about a fair share in whatever you do, you know. You do radio, I'm sure. You see what's being generated at your radio station, and et cetera. You know, so it's just about understanding that and figuring out where my place was in all of that. And yeah.
Now, the new Stone Temple Pilots with Chester Bennington has come out. They're now #1 on the charts.
Oh, good for them. I didn't know they were #1.
Yeah, they made it on active and mainstream charts, media base as of Monday, so they're blowing it up. Now, obviously, you've worked with Scott Weiland and Velvet Revolver, and you've seen, well, let's just say the darker side of rock and roll, and probably Scott Weiland. You've also mentioned that you wish him the best. Do you think, in your opinion, that he's back on drugs?
Yeah, but speaking of experience, I would never say anything about that really publicly. I just really do. You know, I know he's got kids, and I know the kids, and I wish the best for him just because I've seen the really good side of him, and you know, and the Stone Temple Pilots guys, they had to do what they had to do, and I completely, I understood it, what they had to do. You know, I think they've got a lot of backlash from STP fans, but what are you going to do?
Right.
They did the thing they needed to do, and good for them. They're healthy guys and good fellas. You know, guys you pull for if you know them.
Yeah.
And you understand what they went through. I went through the same thing. You know, with their singer, and you know, it's really frustrating. It's utterly frustrating when things are going good, and you know, one guy's kind of dragging it down.
Yeah.
You know, dragging it sideways at least. Sideways. I'll say sideways.
Now, I mean, I got a trillion questions that I still want to ask you, but we only got a few more minutes, maybe even a minute. You're going on tour right now with Walking Papers. What do you take on the road? What are the necessities for you, Duff McKagan?
We are on the road right now, so we're the necessities. Well, you got to take your band. That's probably the most important thing. You know, you take really, I don't want to sound hippie or corny or whatever, but you take you got to steel yourself and have kind of a peace of mind. You travel a lot, and I've got kids, and some, you know, a couple of us have kids in the band. But I take nerdy stuff on the road. I take my gym stuff, my gym clothes, jump rope, yoga mat, and good books. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Like protein powder and amino acids.
Nice. So it's pretty stripped down.
Yeah. Well, tour bus. You know, you get your tour bus, and you got to have some Reese's peanut butter cups. I
hung out with Slash last year at the Rosen Theater. He's amazing. He told me some crazy stories about Medford, Oregon. Have you ever been to Eugene?
Yeah. I've been through Eugene a million times. I played a punk rock. I'm talking about 1982 or something. Maybe 83, before I moved to Hollywood. I was in a few punk rock bands, and we played some guy's basement in Eugene. It was a punk rock house, and the mom lived upstairs, and he would have gigs in the basement. I can't remember the name of the street.
Yeah.
But probably somebody's listening right now going, oh, dude, I went to saw the Dead Kennedys there. But we were on tour with, my band 10 Minute Warning was on tour with Black Flag, and we came through and played the guy's basement. Oh, and I think, we got stranded in, Medford. That's what Slash was talking to you about?
Yeah, you guys had to kind of find peace of mind down there or something.
We found like a soup kitchen or something. I mean, we were just literally starving, no money, and the whole band in 1986 or 1985.
Yeah.
And I think we found some like soup kitchen and hitchhiked on the road there.
Nice.
And two ladies. They were ladies to us, but they're probably only about 32. But we were 20. You know, they picked us up hitchhiking and gave us a ride all the way to Portland.
Well, Duff, it's an honor to talk to you, man. Guns N' Roses was a huge influence on me. Velvet Revolver's amazing. Love Loaded, The Walking Papers, your new band. Thank you, man, and good luck on tour, and I look forward to seeing you live, dude.
All right, thanks, man.
See you.
Bye.